Good morning. This is the Sports Desk on Sin 90.7. And you are here with Lucy.
Dan.
And Mel.
Apologies if there's any technical difficulties. Dan's paneling.
Yeah,
Got an
first
L
time
plater
ever.
on.
Got an L plater on.
And
I'm
I
kidding.
Butchered it. Absolutely butchered it.
You're doing a great job.
start.
Thank
Well
you.
done.
Already.
Proud
Yeah.
of you.
You know, you've had to click one button, but that's fine. Well done, Dan. Well
It's
done.
it's no longer Ladies' Day today.
No,
I'm
you've
back
disrupted
on the show,
it.
Ugh.
and I'm
You've
as nervous
disrupted
as ever
up.
on the panel, stuffing
Ugh.
up already.
But
There we go.
you know what?
Terrific start.
You know what is happening though? You're wearing a lovely pair of chinos.
Oh, thank you. I usually
okay.
rock the trackies, and Lucy has had it in for me.
Yep.
Every week I rock up in my lazy trackies,
Look,
and now I've just rocked up in chinos.
if you're going to be
Revolutionary.
professional, you have to look professional.
Oh, of course.
And now you've set the standard and we expect nothing less ever.
Yeah.
And the viewers would love. If you want to see what I look
Exactly.
like, we'll have a photo up.
Oh, here we
Yeah,
go.
that's right.
I'll put a photo
Bit
up.
of self-promotion. Just
Yeah.
check me out,
Well,
guys.
Yeah, we'll put a photo of us two on with our opposite.
Yeah,
opposite
we've got a
clothing
bit of
on.
burgundy
Nice.
action going on here.
Yeah, I'm the third wheeling. This
Yeah,
couple
yeah,
outfit here.
Yeah. Sorry, Mel.
Cute
But
guys.
We'll get into the sport now.
Anyway,
Show.
fashion.
Anyway, get into the sport. But we're going to give, like we did last week, an update on this cricket pay situation. Because I think as far as politics goes, this is the biggest sort of political
Talking point at the moment.
talking point at the moment.
Yeah.
Do you want to give us an update on what's happened so far, Mel?
Yeah, well, what has happened so far? So we've got a big stalemate, really. So Cricket Australia versus the Players Association. So traditionally, the deal has been a revenue sharing model where the players get a percentage of revenue along with their salaries, obviously. And the proposed kind of changes, Cricket Australia wants to cut the revenue sharing model so that players are just paid from a set pool.
Yep.
And essentially that's going to cut more money from state players and domestic players. The players at the top of the chain are actually going to do better out of the proposed deal. But the other side of that is the Players Association are saying, well, hang on a minute. We don't like this. We like the status quo. Why are you guys changing this?
Yeah.
But it's confusing.
It's really confusing, but it's one of those things where it's gotten to the point now when either side won't budge. Like, no one is changing their
They're
tune.
both just going, nah,
yeah.
I'm not accepting your proposal. I believe this. And then...
Yeah.
And so the thing we have to point out there is that June 30 is the deadline that we've got here because that's when current contracts run out. So if something hasn't been agreed to before then, we have a whole lot of Aussie players that are technically unemployed and can go overseas and sign contracts and go and snub the Aussie
the Cricket Australia.
Go to IPL and earn millions of dollars.
No, go to the one they touted was the 2020 competition in England, which is the first one that's kind of up. But also, one of the biggest development that has sort of happened from now is that the ACA has developed the Cricketers brand, which is where the players will own their own intellectual property in the event that CA doesn't offer them contracts.
Yeah. So that essentially, exactly, that was talking about how if they don't agree to something, that they can't use the players' images and all that sort of stuff in marketing for the Ashes and all this stuff coming up. So that's a really big issue that no one would want to get into.
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't want to get into
messy
that.
so quickly.
And then we've got the federal government getting involved now as well, with the federal sports minister Greg Hunt making comments about it. And then I read something in The Age today about how they wanted John Howard to maybe get involved in it as well.
Might have him opening the bowling as well.
I know that.
Footage a few years ago.
Yeah, there was a lot of metaphors about
definitely.
About Howard. What was one they had at the end though? Like, it was like Howard would be good for this because he knows left field, which is where he had to retrieve his ball from that day in Pakistan. And I was like, classic.
No, but can I say, so last week when we first spoke about this, we were a bit confused as to like, well, what's going on here? When you look at this face value, it seems very much like Cricket Australia, why are you trying to change a good thing? Like the players used to get paid not enough. Like 5 years ago, they changed that. The players are all paid really well now. It seems like we're on a good thing. What's the beef here? I've read more into it, and I have changed my tone.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh, here we go.
I think, because I think everyone came out thinking that, and since then Cricket Australia have done it. Please explain. And so Cricket Australia have said in order to grow the game, we need more funds. We need access to more of our revenue. So with the current setup, players have access to revenue sharing. So it's not profit sharing. So I read like a really good stat where it's essentially like if Cricket Australia invest $100,000 and make $115,000, right? If they get so the profit there is 15 grand. But with the current setup of revenue sharing, which is different to profit sharing, Cricket Australia would make a loss on that of 13,000.
Yeah.
So that's a really important distinction, that this is not sharing of profits that the game makes. This is sharing on revenue, so it's meaning Cricket Australia aren't making as much as they would like, and therefore, particularly with grassroots stuff, they don't have access to as much to invest in stuff.
And this is a big issue. Like, my father works for he was the head of game development at Cricket Australia, and I've watched him for so long work and do these things, and I think their biggest thing is that they want to put money into things, they want to put more money into things to grow the game, particularly the women's game. They want to grow a lot more and sort of professionalise, especially Premier Cricket and stuff like that, but it seems that they don't have sort of the backing or the funds to do it. So in that way, I can definitely agree with that, which I think this is like a new thing that like people are kind of talking about pay, but now Cricket Australia's sort of been like, no, like let's show you what this actually means. Yeah, because
exactly.
It was a player pay problem, but now we can see it as a whole of cricket problem.
Yeah.
That is it's a bottom up problem, not just something that's affecting the top.
And
Completely.
yeah, Cricket Australia saying that they're that this sort of grassroots cricket is languishing. Luce, I know you just mentioned your connection with your father. What's your opinion on the whole matter? Like,
well, yeah, because if you don't have enough money in talent pathways and you don't have enough money in community cricket, then effectively you're ruling out the future of the game, which is what Cricket Australia are saying. So if you don't have the money to develop what is arguably already a very good pathway to make it better and, you know, like keep it going, then you'll lose talent and we won't see Australia be competitive in the future.
And you know what? I think also they're very aware of, I think a lot of people would agree that cricket are kind of losing that battle with AFL at the moment, particularly in this state. And so we were just talking on Talking Footy the other night about this young guy who, if he nominates for the draft, he'll go top 10, but he happens to be the son of Cricket Australia's
James
CEO.
Sutherland,
Yeah, correct. And so he's really good at cricket as well. And the inside mail at the moment is that footy's winning that battle. Yeah. And if the CEO of Cricket Australia's son can't even pick cricket, they got some work to do.
That's a big issue.
Which also is different to a few years ago when Alex Keith in 2009 was picked up by the Gold Coast Suns, then moved on and chose cricket.
Then chose football.
And then came back to choose football. So it shows that Cricket Australia, what they're talking about now is that, this is a whole of cricket issue. It's not just a player pay issue.
Yeah, it's definitely not a player pay issue. The more I've read into this, the more I get it. And I think where we're at right now is a classic stalemate where I can see some really good middle ground already. Yeah. And I think Cricket Australia can see that too. The players, I now think, are being pretty stubborn.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, like, just off the top of my head, you look at that and go, oh, we've got a revenue sharing model. Oh, but they shouldn't be making losses on profits.
Yeah, true.
So why doesn't it change to a profit sharing model?
Well, hopefully the mediation comes in sooner rather than later because, as we said, time is running out.
Yeah, it's how many days now? A month?
It's like,
a month,
probably like less than a month. So we'll I think we might have to talk about this at the start of every Wednesday show.
Yeah, because it's
forever
so much.
changing.
Exactly,
Huge.
So much keeps coming to light
Beef
all the time.
keeps occurring.
It's politics. And I mean, actual politics is getting involved now.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
It's going to keep going, but we're going to throw to a song now. Let's go, Dan. You can do it.
All right.
This is Frank Ocean with Pink and White, and we are listening to the Sports Desk on SYN 90.7. This is the Sports Desk on SYN 90.7, and we just spoke about the cricket pay crisis. I think you
Crisis.
can call it crisis.
It's
We're
been
going there.
upgraded.
We're going there.
No, I think that's fair.
And now
Yeah.
we're not going to something that's less than a crisis. But then again, it could be a crisis for Carlton if Taylor Harris does
Ooh.
not play well
and
next
you
year.
are internal as well.
Yeah, well,
Big
look,
call.
Look, you can say I'm on a break at the moment, so it's
Ooh,
fine.
okay.
It's not in season, but if you didn't catch on from that, we are talking AFL trade period wrap. It all wrapped up yesterday after the free agency period finished. And speaking of free agency, I think one of the bigger moves was Kelly Gibson, released by Adelaide
Yeah.
to go back home to Fremantle.
There
Which
we go. That's
that
a
is a
big
big
pick up
move.
for them. I reckon.
big pick up for Fremantle, who finished second bottom last
Yep.
year. Didn't have the best year. I think only won the one game against Carlton.
I think I picked them as first as well. So
Yeah, well, they were meant to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were meant to be.
They were. It was them and Bulldogs that were
Them and
touted
Bulldogs.
to be the best teams. And
Yeah.
they almost ended up
Oh
being
wait,
the
no,
worst.
GWS finished last. Sorry,
Yeah,
Fremantle
GWS, yeah.
finished second last.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I did.
Yeah, you said that.
I said that.
That's
Okay,
all right.
good.
Stick with you
Oh my
guys.
god,
Bit flustered
stressing
this
myself
morning.
out.
Anyway, give us a wrap, Luce.
Okay, the wrap. So
Talk me
obviously,
through it.
Carlton came out firing at the start
They did.
Bang,
of
bang, bang.
last week, picking up.
Thank you for letting us know what firing.
Yeah, thank you. Picked up Nicholas Stevens from Collingwood, and moved on 3 draft picks over to Collingwood. Collingwood lost Nicholas Stevens, obviously, their first best and fairest, then lost their second best and fairest, Alicia Eva, to GWS. So some good pickups by GWS. Now, you would think that GWS being a Sydney team and it being a state-based draft, they wouldn't do a lot of moving during the trade period, but
Lies.
yeah, exactly. Lies. They managed to pick up Pepper Randall for a straight swap of Ashley Guest to Melbourne, and then picked up Maddie Boyd in return for a draft pick. Now, Melbourne lost, obviously, Pepper Randall and Maddie Boyd, but incoming was Carlton forward, Bianca Jacobson.
Bianca Jacobson,
Yes,
one of your favourites.
Yeah.
One of my faves. And she, got passed on to Melbourne, which I thought was really sad. But the Bianca Jacobson thing was weird because she was one of the initial players that got offered up by Carlton to go to Brisbane.
To go to Brisbane, yeah.
So it
Yeah,
sounds
right.
like Carlton kind of wanted to get rid of her.
Ooh.
Do you think that there was any... We're treading a fine line between some insider information here, Luce, but do you think she had any say in that, though? Like,
Oh, yeah,
not,
you
well,
have-
not,
yeah.
I know she gets some say, but
Yeah.
as in, do you think that was more, like, driven by her? Like, she was like, I'm keen to go anywhere? Or do you think that was them going, oh, we got this on the table?
I think it probably was more like, we've got this on the table. Are
Yep.
you willing to move?
Yep.
And she was obviously okay
Happy
with
with it.
going to Melbourne. But as a girl who grew up as, this is her, as, someone who did grow up as a Blues supporter, I thought it was a bit sad for her.
Yeah.
But anyway, she was off to Melbourne. So Melbourne gained Bianca Jacobson and pick number 12 while losing Maddie Boyd and Pepper Randall. Pepper Randall, who didn't play last season because she broke her leg in a practice game just before the season started.
Could be a good pickup.
Yeah, so she is one of the she was touted to be a very big player. She's still only 21, so she'll be a good player for them. Western Bulldogs lost Jamie Lambert and Deanna Berry. Jamie Lambert went off to Collingwood, and Deanna Berry went off to Western Bulldogs. Sorry. Wait, I said that
Bulldogs
wrong.
Picked up.
Western,
Deanna Berry.
they picked up Deanna Berry. But otherwise, they only really
Yeah.
moved / accepted trades
Yeah.
in,
They were pretty boring.
like, they had to for, like, Collingwood in their GWS trade with Alicia Eva and then with Carlton, so they could get the big one. And then, speaking of, Carlton were the biggest movers.
Yeah.
They really, really wanted to obviously rejig their list and tried everything possible. I think the talk was they put 5 deals to the AFL.
Wow.
That 4 got knocked back until 1 was accepted so that they could have Taylor Harris.
Right.
And so Carlton lost young forward Bella Eyre, who was a Rising Star nomination, and also midfielder Nat Exxon, who broke her leg in the game against Western Bulldogs. But Nat Exxon will be a big loss because she was a very...
She was quick.
Yeah, very
Very quick
speedy
and-
inside
and
midfielder.
Big tackles
I was
as
about to
well.
say, and for her small stature, huge tackle. So she'll be very greatly missed. And then again, Brisbane, Adelaide, Freo, not much.
Yeah.
Brisbane only really got involved because Taylor Harris wanted to
Yeah.
move. Adelaide won the premiership. As they say, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
But
Yeah.
the thing
Callie
with
Gibson
Carlton
going
is it
home.
could be like a huge... I mean, they've got Nicola Stevens won the BNF at Collingwood, and Taylor Harris. That's two fairly big fish for three. Or I don't know. I'd say Bianca Jackson was one of their best players.
Yeah.
But Belair and Nat Exxon were sort of in that middle tier, whereas they've now drafted 2 stars. They could almost be up for a flag this year. Who knows?
That's the thing. I think that's what
they've
Carlton
gone aggressive.
wants.
Yeah.
They're very aggressive, and I think they want to truly
Have
kind
a real
of
crack.
assert themselves as that benchmark of the competition, which good on them. Like, if you want to,
It's nice to see
Yeah.
such because really I didn't think that this trade period would be as aggressive as it has been.
Yeah.
Or if Carlton didn't come out swinging, it would have been like relatively boring. So it's nice to see, a whole lot of action, I think.
and
And,
that's
They're
fine.
keen to
big
get a flag
shake-ups.
early on
Yeah.
the board.
Yeah, so it's good that there will be teams, when the teams come in next year, there'll be new faces in every team. And, like, people who have swapped over from other teams and things like that. I'm sure we won't see any bad blood between players, I'm sure.
You don't reckon with Collingwood and Carlton? I mean, with Stevens going over, there's
True.
already that rivalry in the AFL. Do you see more of that sort of rivalry occurring in the AFLW next year?
I think
With these
as
player
it
movement as well?
goes on, I think we'll see bigger rivalries like Adelaide, Brisbane. They'll be rivals because of that the inaugural grand final sort of thing. But I think for the time being, I think a lot of people are just concentrating on playing for now.
Exactly.
But it's good. Like, as you said, Melissa, I think it's good that there was a lot of change. But as we said, the Taylor Harris move is probably the biggest
big one.
move
Yeah.
that's happened. And it was like what was speculated for the whole 2 weeks and kind of finally came into fruition on that Friday last week.
We were saying this off air before. It's a lot like the Tom Boyd deal a few years ago. Everyone wasn't really, they've stalked out this big fish, and now we're not quite sure how it will go. There was an article, I think, on Girls Play Footy that said, she's not a star yet.
Yeah.
Like, it's good to see that, there is that criticism, but she is young.
I think she's still only 20. This is
crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So a lot of people said Carlton gave up a talented young forward in Bella Eyre who did play a couple of very good games for Carlton for Taylor Harris. But then I'm like, arguably Taylor Harris is exactly the same. She's just 2 years older than Bella Eyre. So we still have a developing forward in Taylor Harris. But I reckon her linking up with Darcy Vesio in the forward line.
That's probably what I was thinking
if
about.
this
and then
clicks,
Stevens.
this is going to be great.
Yeah, it'll be huge.
Yeah. But interesting what you said, Dan, because exactly that's still it's becoming a bigger problem in the AFL. This idea of like cashing out a lot
Josh
of dollars,
Kelly,
exactly, like
Justin Martin.
on these guys. Even Joe Danaher at the moment, like
$2 million.
offering big bucks for a lot of potential. Like
Exactly.
so all these young guys.
Could happen.
And so now we're seeing it in the girls as well. Like these young people getting offered big dollars and getting sourced, headhunted.
But
Just
no,
on
it's
the premise
very
of
You probably
potential.
wouldn't have thought it would happen in the AFLW this early. Like a year in, you've already got clubs
big
going,
move.
wow, she's a huge talent. We've
Yeah.
got to
We've got to stalk it out.
Yeah.
And I think the one that will fly under the radar is the Kelly Gibson one, because I think with her playing in Adelaide and obviously the big hype being around Erin Phillips, Sarah Perkins, those type players, Kelly Gibson was actually Adelaide's marquee player last year.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Which I know when you think about it, it's crazy. And so she's now left the club to go home to Perth, which I think is because she was going to be moved from that tier 1 sort of pay bracket.
Yeah, 100%.
And she's also only 20. So Fremantle could be picking up a big kind of scalp here with another developing
and
player.
may fly under the radar as well. I mean, they've already got a good midfield.
Donnellan, who is a very good player.
Yeah.
Ebony Antonio, speed, strength. Match her up with Kelly Gibson in the midfield, and they could be.
They could fly.
They could do, and
like they were predicted to do.
Fremantle have delisted a lot of players, so they'll be looking, and they have control over the Western Australian
Yeah, I was just
talent
about
pool.
to say, can you explain the state base?
Okay.
The outside Victoria drafts.
Yeah, so outside Victoria, so South Australian clubs, so Adelaide, Brisbane and Queensland, Fremantle and Perth, when the draft rolls around, they can only draft players who either are from that state or players that have nominated to be drafted by that state. That's why we saw a lot of girls from Victoria in Adelaide, Sydney and Brisbane. So Caitlin Ashmore nominated to be nominated in Brisbane, got drafted by Brisbane. Jess Dalpos nominated to go to GWS, was drafted by GWS, etc., etc. But I think Fremantle didn't get much of that because I think they're a little far away.
So far away, yeah.
Yeah.
But they also got a few stolen because like there was such a talent pool in Western Australia for the women's game, and a lot of these Melbourne clubs were just
Both
pinching their players.
GWS's marquee players were from
and
Western
GWS.
Australia.
There you go.
So, so I think we won't see a lot of that this time. I don't think, just because all those players are probably already kind of established in their own club. So Fremantle could do very well in their own state-based draft, and WA arguably is the next best women's comp after VFL. The VFL. So they could come back as a very strong side. But I think my tip in all of this is that Carlton, despite the aggression, they've come off well in the trade period.
Yeah.
But as we said, we won't know until next season.
And also interesting to see Collingwood. They have 3 picks in the first 9 now. So they're really looking to this draft. They're seeing, maybe perhaps the talent pool is improving a bit, and that their list wasn't as good as they originally thought.
Well, also the whispers are internal issues at Collingwood.
Really?
So, which I think is very easily kind of suggestible, considering they lost their first best and fairest and second best and fairest, and that a lot of players kind of were delisted. They did have quite a few delisted, and picking up so many draft picks that they want to bring in new people. So it could be tough for Collingwood, but they'll probably be making a move on Chloe Malloy, who I'm tipping as being the number 1 draft pick this year, who has been starring for Diamond Creek, and she's only 18.
There
I think.
go.
So she's a good young forward, and place her up with Mo Hope, who will be playing injury-free next year.
Oh, was she injured all year? So
she was injured. Yeah, so put her up with,
and also triple teamed as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't help, but.
So Collingwood, they could snag some big movement, but I think for Melbourne and Western Bulldogs, definitely consolidation. Adelaide, not broke, don't fix it.
Yep.
Same with Brisbane, and Fremantle literally just can't do anything in this thing. So that's really the AFLW trade period.
Wrapped up.
Yeah.
And just wanted to quickly mention that Hawthorn have officially nominated themselves for a team for 2019.
And Lucy's looking for a spot on the list. So, just quietly.
I would love a run at Box Hill Hawks, guys. So if you need me, I'm available. Have been commentating down at their games. And,
is that on the Girls Play Footy? I think I may have seen your name.
Yeah, on Girls Play Footy,
There we go.
So, if you ever can't get to a VFL game, some of them are streamed.
Here we go, the double plug.
And also, you can hear me do the special comments.
Oh, fantastic.
Just your classic.
Who wouldn't want to?
What did I say? Oh, on the weekend, though, they were like, here's Lucy Walken with the special comments. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Lucky you bring that sort of professionalism here to see.
I know, right? Yeah,
Fantastic.
and they're like, but then luckily it happened to someone else later in our commentary, and I was like,
no.
oh yeah, sorry.
Disaster.
So catch that kind of high level analysis on girlsplayfooty.com.
I love it.
On our match of the day. I will be there commentating the Cranbourne v Box Hill Hawks game on Sunday. So tune in. But that's our wrap of the AFLW trade period. When we come back, we're going to keep it on AFL and this punch issue. It's
a big one.
It's igniting debate.
Yes.
So, and that's what we love on Wednesday
on
Sports Desk.
#politics.
We're going to go to a song. This is Beck Sandridge with In the Fog, In the Flame, and this is Sin 90.7. This is the Sports Desk on Sin at 90.7. That was Beck Sandridge with In the Fog, In the Flame. And we're sticking to the AFL now, and it's been brought to our attention. Well, everyone's attention, not just mine or the Sports Desks.
Not just sports.
Exclusive.
Exclusive. We have noticed this.
Exclusive. Everyone's talking about this.
But the MRP made a contentious decision on Zach Jones' gut punch to Luke Breust. Is that how you say his name?
Yep, Breust.
Yeah,
Breust.
Yep.
In the game on Friday night, and people are saying if it's not hard enough, considering the AFL's tough stance against punches last week.
But it was just a dumb punch, really.
Yeah.
So a bit of background here. This has been an issue recently in the AFL, the idea of jumper punching and those kind of niggly little punches that don't count as actual swinging punches, but you're clearly, getting blokes on the jaw and stuff.
Yeah.
This has been happening a bit lately. Gil McLaughlin and the big dogs at the AFL came out last week and said, "Nah, jumper punches have no place in our game. We don't like the look. We hate it. Blah blah."
Which
really,
fair enough. I don't understand how holding someone by the jumper means that you can still punch him in the
there
face.
was one with Trent Cotchin a few weeks ago where he gave him a fair clip to the jaw.
Correct, exactly. It was really bad.
Yeah, but it was through the jumper and got a fine, which was, I thought, I'm a Richmond fan, I found that ridiculous.
So on the back of all of that, the top dogs at the AFL came out publicly and said, nope. The comments are really strong, saying we're stamping it out. Jumper punches have no place in our game. It's not a good look. But then the MRP, the match review panel, have not changed their tone. And so they've just handed down more of the same, really soft fines, like $1,500 fines. When you're earning what they earn.
Even though, as they said, it was like not a big punch that Zach Jones threw.
So
it still is a
low impact. That's the
but
thing.
it was an intentional, like he was on the ground and he intentionally
Yep.
Yeah,
threw
it was
a punch.
off the play as well, was it?
Yeah.
It was sort of in the contest.
Yeah, it was
but,
a bit off it, yeah. But exactly. So they've acknowledged that it's intentional, but what we're kind of seeing here is if it's still low impact, you're not really getting that heavily penalised for it. So the issue with this is the takeaway from this is people going, well, kids, you can still grab someone by the jumper by the jumper and punch them in the jaw.
Or just, if you have to play, if it's low impact, go swing away.
Exactly. So it's like, you can hit someone, just like hit them a little bit hard.
Yeah, maybe on like in the guard or something like that. And we also saw one with Ben Cunnington a week or two ago with Bernie Vince.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even a free kick. It wasn't even a reverse free kick.
And I think, ridiculous. Especially this year, this has been an issue because it has been such a close year in terms of football. Like, it's like one game separates...
a bazillion teams.
Yeah.
What is it? Like 7th and 14th? It's like one game or something.
Whole middle bit, yeah.
So there's obviously a lot of frustration in these teams, which I think is what has stemmed into a lot of these games turning kind of feisty. There's been a lot of incidences this year, and look, to be honest, I haven't watched a lot of football the last 2 years. Like, this is probably the first year in a long time that I've kind of come back to it. Thanks, Essendon. And for me, it seems that this year there's just been a lot more of this than I can ever remember.
But is this because, players think they can get away with it? Like these sort of
I think it's they
punches?
know they can get away with it and they feel extremely frustrated by how they would probably feel like a lot of teams are playing well for little reward. And for some reason on the football field, when you're frustrated, you take that aggression out on your opponent.
But I think you're right, Dan, in that the players seem to know where that line is at the moment. So they're going exactly as you said, Lucy. I'm frustrated. I'm annoyed. Damn it. And I know if I grab you by the jumper, I can get away with it.
Get away with things, as long as it's not absolutely to the jaw. With caution,
they know that they can't fully just give you a left hook and bring the elbow up.
You're not doing a Barry
But
Hall,
if they don't bring the elbow up, they totally know that they can tread that line at the moment. So where this has become a big issue is we've seen a few mums and people point out that in junior footy and in local footy, this has started to become a bit more of a thing.
Yeah.
And that's so concerning, and it totally makes sense that these under 10s, these under 14s, really impressionable young kids watching the footy every weekend, seeing their favourite players like Jack Riewoldt and Trent Cotchin with all these jumper punches, and then so in their under 14s match on the weekend, they're throwing in a few jumper punches.
And, I mean, also on Fox Footy, AFL... Bounce has actually come under a bit of fire recently for other things, but they also did a top 5 jumper punches with the audio of segments and with the audience, laughing and going, that was
that's so
awesome.
Inappropriate.
Yeah,
that's really inappropriate. When we say these things about like juniors, like I was talking to a woman that I play with who has 4 children.
Yep.
Amazing. Plays football, 4 children. I know.
Impressive.
Yeah. Just want to point that out first. But she was watching her son, who's 7, and she was like, oh, he gives it to him a little bit. And I was like, surely he's not punching anyone. And she was like, oh, no, they're all I don't know, all the kids he plays against are really tall, so he's really small. So we kind of, you know, just like give them a little bit of a jostle, that kind of thing. And I was like, oh, that's fine. Like, you know, just like asserting your position on the field is fine. Like, there's always a bit of push and shove.
Part of the game. Has to be.
And I said to her, I meant, no, like, you do something and out of frustration, you turn around and belt a kid. And she was like, oh, no, he would never do something like that. And I was like, yeah, exactly. But it happened. It is happening. I got punched in the stomach as a junior by a boy. I'll never forget it. I will never forget it. But I think that was more that I was a girl playing football. That's why he punched me.
Really?
Yeah.
Just for that reason?
Just for that reason. We've come a long way, Dan.
Yeah, we have.
And now
anyway,
we don't want to
big
laugh
league.
about
Yeah,
that,
exactly.
but
Oh my
that's
God.
horrible.
No, but
Yeah.
exactly, Dan, what you pointed out with the bounce segment particularly is coming back to that idea of, like, culturally, it's like,
still
oh,
the
a
footy,
bit of
yeah.
violence isn't that, you know, we know that a big Barry Hall punch is not okay, but we're still like, oh, a few jumper punches here and there, that's not bad.
And even like Brian Taylor, like often gets really like, you know, up and about with these things, gets the audience
He pretty much
excitement.
encourages it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that is stemming to some wider issues about where we sit on violence and masculinity.
And this
in
is
general.
that other point where it's like, it's not acceptable to do anywhere else. Like, you wouldn't walk down the street and like someone
or like, you know, in
like
pubs,
someone
for
annoys
instance.
you and like you're in a pub or whatever, you're allowed to punch someone, but only if you hold the
Grab
scruff
them
of their
by-
neck.
Yeah.
Like, it's like you just can't do things like that. And I also think we've come so far now from this whole like, we're men playing footy, like I'm gonna punch someone like as they used to like in the olden days. Like we've come so far from that. It's like it just shouldn't be. I just don't think it should be part of the
And
game
I think-
because of those kids who watch it
Exactly.
and turn around and do it. And it's like, football's more than that.
And I
It's
think the
not-
important thing to remember is we're not saying we've got to be super soft. We're not saying we don't want any contact in our contact sport.
You know, fans just clap when they kick a goal. You know, we're not saying
and
that
just
sort
like,
of
oh,
stuff.
don't bump each other.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Exactly. It's those more dog acts.
Yeah,
where
the weak ones that are just, you know, when they're not
Exactly.
looking, they go
Like,
whack.
that Bernie Vince one, like off the play. I don't know if it was him, but that one
no,
that was
it
like
was,
off the
Cunnington,
off the play. Like that's
just like, you know, dodgy ones that just don't need to happen,
Yeah.
especially when they get guys off guard a bit.
Yeah.
We don't need it. And as we've said, now that, you know, it should come as a surprise to no one that young kids are starting to copy what
Yeah.
they see that big AFL
Well,
boys doing.
they always have, really, but it's just more that it's continuing, I think, in this sort of age. I mean, you'd say 20, 30 years ago, it was like junior footy and, you know, local footy would have just been horrendous with that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
the fact that it's still going on now, I think it's like, it's just got to, it's hard to stop, but I think the AFL have like, as they've said, they want to have a stronger stance on this. The strongest stance would have been to give Zach Jones a week.
yeah.
So
They've got
do
to
you know
talk
what-
the talk and walk the walk.
Just before we wrap this up, actually, I've just remembered some really interesting comments from Jimmy Bartell on this, who is a new addition to the match review panel. He said what he would like to see introduced is the idea of we've got football-related acts and non-football-related acts. So football incidents
In the
are
play,
still,
sort of, you know.
Exactly. So you can still have something that might have been intentional, but it's low impact or whatever. But there's a separate grading system for these ones, exactly, that have no place in football. So a jumper punch, that can still be low impact and intentional, but carries a greater penalty than a football act.
As it should.
And that's what he's saying, that at the moment the way it works is that there's no difference for those sort of things, even though we can all see there is one. So I think that's the solution.
And the other thing that Jimmy Bartell said, that it was like impossible for the match review panel to kind of take on the AFL's hard stance, because they do need to change rules
To the grading.
and like all that kind of thing. So it could take months before this harder stance.
I don't
is
think we'll see a
taken.
change until the end of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be
Which
one of
is a
those things
shame.
where next year they'll be like, we've changed it now, and this is what the deal's going to be. So
Yep.
it's definitely an issue to definitely just like watch out for. I'd like to see the jumper punching and the punching go on the decline for the rest of the season.
And I think we will
definitely.
eventually.
Yeah. It'll be. I would like that. That would be good, because there's no point. Like, it's the worst when you go to play football and it's like, this is what happened to us on the weekend. It's like you go to play football and the other team rocks up, and it's just clear that they're there to fight.
Sometimes it can
Yeah.
be,
Or-
to the team's advantage, but it can also be to the detriment,
To the detriment,
Well, it's
yeah,
like those
exactly.
comments, was it when the D's and Richmond played or whatever, and Trent Cotchin said, seemed like the D's were there all day just to fight. Was it the D's or maybe Collingwood? Anyway,
Yeah.
but he came out saying the next day, like, they lost and Richmond won, and he was like, they were just there for a fight.
Yeah, and it's like that's just not good for the game. So hopefully it's on the decline. Hopefully the AFL stance will someday match up with the match review panel.
Yep.
But until then, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
But we're going to go to a song now. This is Arctic Monkeys with the Hell's Cat Spangled Sha-la-la-la. And you're
Sha-la-la-la.
and you're listening to the Sports Desk on Sin 90.7. This is the Sports Desk on Sin 90.7. That was Arctic Monkeys with Hellcat Spangled Sha-la-la-la. Oh, Dan, I wanted you to sing it with me.
No, I wasn't doing
Oh,
that.
damn
You
it.
guys.
We may be matching clothes, but no, we're not
we're not
matching
singing together.
Shalalas.
Oh, no
Cute.
Maybe
duets
the-
on the
maybe the
Sports
end.
Desk. But we're going to turn to our attention to some tennis now. The French Open is currently on. Thought we'd give an update on the Australian contingent, who are just not doing very well.
Well, I mean, yeah, the Aussies we never have a great pool of talent. So Sam Stowes is through, which is exciting, and she traditionally does really well at the French Open.
She
so
does,
I
yeah.
would watch that space. She also just had a win in the tournament prior to the French Open. So hopefully she's on
we
some
go.
form. But you never know with Sam
When was
Stowes.
her last Grand Slam?
Her last Grand Slam
Yeah,
win
she-
is that one time.
Yeah, one time. Yeah, that's
The
right.
US.
That's right. Yeah.
That was like, what, 2012 maybe?
Yeah.
It was ages ago.
Huge.
It was a good time once. But so she's through, so that's really exciting.
Yeah.
Nick Kyrgios went through in straight sets. He traditionally does really well on clay. And the men's draw, I think you'll find, will start to open up. So I'd really watch his form.
And watch Fox Sports headlines as well, I reckon.
Yeah, so we were just saying that Kyrgios won in straight sets, a great win, blah, 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 great form, and the headline
Managed
from
to
his
find a
match
negative.
was still that he
Fought with an
had a sook
umpire.
about something.
Yeah. The
Anyway,
umpire fought back, so that was good.
and it was small, and it's great, and Nick Kyrgios is good, but damn it, come good one day, boy. I have faith. Anyway, yeah, and then you've got your other Aussies like Daria Gavrilova lost, Casey Delacqua lost, Ash Barty lost, shame.
Jordan Thompson as well.
And then, yeah, more recently we've had Jordan Thompson bowed out. I think he went 4 sets as well.
Yeah, he won a set against Isner, so
Which
that's
is
positive.
big, and you would expect, like, that's the expected result there.
Yeah, definitely.
He put up a good fight, but no one probably would have thought he would beat Isner. And then Tanasi Kokonakis, who is so troubled with injury, but is a superstar, he took the first set off Nishikori,
That's
which is
huge.
massive, and then he went down in 4, but 6-4, 6-4 were the last 2 sets, so super close.
Yeah.
His first Grand Slam back, because obviously he had to pull out of the Aussie with more injury.
Yeah.
So that's really promising signs from him.
Nishikori does love a grinder, though. He does love a 5-set epic.
Yes,
but,
he
yeah,
does. But Tanasi, like, that shouldn't
to
happen.
even grab a set off him is
Tanasi hasn't played a Grand Slam for a long time. He's only young, so definitely watch that space. But yeah, Kyrgios and Stowes are our only hopes left. And a few upsets happening in the women's draw as well, with some big seeds going out.
Yeah.
So, and also don't forget, we've got no Sharapova, we've got no Federer. So watch. I think we're going to see
maybe an
It'll be
upset.
big.
Some
Kyrgios could be a
some
sneaky
curveball
chance.
finalists here. But the talking point here, obviously, Margaret Court.
Margaret
Court, Aussie tennis legend. Obviously, we've got Margaret Court Arena named after her. She's come out, in the past fortnight, and I think you'd have to live under a rock to have not heard her comments. Margaret Court is quite a Christian Catholic, one of those.
She's
That's
a
an
pastor.
understatement.
She's a pastor,
Yeah.
exactly, and she is very anti.
Gay marriage.
Yeah,
No,
and-
marriage equality.
Not
same-sex
anti-homosexual as she's tried to outline.
What?
Apparently, she
Oh,
said
really?
like, "Oh, I'm not against. They can do what they want
Oh,
over
just
there,
don't-
like
just
you
do
know,
it
put 'em
behind
over-
closed doors
Yeah.
and not with rings
yeah,
on.
Yeah.
exactly. Just don't touch marriage.
But so
pretty much is
Margaret
what she
Court's
said.
come out once again slamming the idea of marriage equality and said that she won't fly Qantas because of Qantas's stance on marriage equality.
But then she came out, and then I think this was from a few years ago. I'm not sure if this was a recent thing, but then Casey Delacqua brought up the article on Casey Delacroix and her partner Amanda Judd, and them. And
they have children
their
together.
first child, I think, was when it was written.
Yep.
And Margaret Court has just pretty much gone on to say that she doesn't agree with what's going on between them, and goes as far as to call Amanda Judd Casey Delacroix's partner in inverted commas.
Right.
So that's good.
So anyway, Margaret Court has come out again saying all this stuff, stemmed by, I'm not going to fly Qantas anymore. Qantas CEO Alan Joyce is obviously a gay man as well. People have also pointed out, well, have fun trying to fly because Virgin Australia are for marriage equality as well, and lots of places. But so that's been a talking point. Obviously, our Aussie tennis players particularly have been asked about this overseas. And Sam Stosur had some pretty interesting comments on this. She kind of suggested that some players may boycott Margaret Court Arena in next year's Australian Open.
And just go, nope, I'm not playing there.
Yeah, exactly. Because players get a say in the draw, the big dogs. Like, Nick Kyrgios always chooses to play at Hisense Arena rather than
which is very good
Margaret
for the
Court.
free-to-air fans who rock up.
And that's why he does it, because he likes, heaps of fans to be able to come, and it's a rowdier court. It's free. Yeah. But so they get some say in things like that. So Sam has said, we might see players say, no, I'm not going to play on Margaret Court. And then wider in the public, there's, been talk, well, should we consider a name change? What are your thoughts, guys?
Wow.
It's one of those it's one of those arguments where it's like, do you separate the sports person from their views?
Ability,
but then my thing has always been that you can't really do that, I don't think.
So when this first came out, I had this chat with my mum the other day, because when I first read it, I was very hard on, scrap it, change the name.
Yeah.
I've since, and I think that was the world's reaction. Yeah. I think we've all since then gone, well, hang on a minute, everyone's entitled to have different opinions. It's the nature of democracy, so we can't, just because we don't like her opinion, we can't, just change the name. But I think that there is also a line where how much, we're celebrating her as more than just a tennis player by naming an arena after her. We're celebrating her as an individual, literally celebrating you. Yeah. For you to then, if her comments were this harsh and racist, I think the name change would happen straight away.
True.
So
That's a good point.
I think it's I don't know.
I think the fact that this, if our nation actually supported gay marriage and it was legal, I think the name change may be more likely, but in the climate of Australian politics, I think there'd be so much backlash.
There'd be so much backlash, and I don't think they're going to change the name, but I think it is definitely interesting.
Yeah, it's on the table, 100%.
But it's definitely, I strongly believe that if the comments were this bad and of a racist nature, it'd be going, I reckon. This would be huge. Yeah. So it says that we've still got a lot of work to do here.
I think it just means that we need to just legalise marriage equality.
Absolutely.
And get on with it, so these people can't have this opinion.
Do you know what's been the fun thing out of this too, though? That so many gay people have come out and said, well, guess what, Margaret Court? Every time I go to your arena, I'm going to be hooking up with my partner. And next Australian Open, I'm going to be flying that gay flag. So proud. Yeah. So
there we go. We might see.
That,
so we won't see. We'll see some people, boycotting it, but we'll also see some people, a sort of flags
we'll
and that.
We'll have a gay pride day next year's.
That would
Aussie
actually
Open.
be pretty good to see.
I would not be surprised.
Yeah,
if that
I can see it happen.
There'll be people in Margaret Court Arena flying pride flags and stuff. It'll be awesome.
We'll be there, won't we?
I'll be into it. I'll be there for sure.
Bloody oath.
I'll be there.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I work in this space, and I think it's just very upsetting when you hear about how LGBT QI youth especially are turned away from playing sport because they feel like they're not accepted.
Yeah.
To have sports people of her caliber who have
come out and say.
Arenas named after them come out and say these things, it just makes you think. And people are always like, oh, it's not that bad for them. And it's like, well, if that was you would probably be pretty stressed out. You'd probably be like, oh, I can't play tennis because one of the biggest players believes this. You know what I mean? So that's also a thing that a gripe that I have with it is that it's already an issue and she's just making it a lot worse.
making it worse for
Yeah.
them.
making it worse for like kids.
Yeah, the good thing is there is responses from within the tennis community, and even Margaret Court Arena have said that they don't support.
They
the
don't
comments
support her
of
as well.
which is good.
So I think it's a worthwhile debate, but as I said, I think it's just a wake-up call to Australia that
Exactly. It just shows that broader than any silly comments Margaret Court makes, it shows